Thank you. Okay, let's pray. Father, we just want to thank you for all that you do in our lives. Father, we are just blown away by your mercy and your grace that you lavish upon us every single day of our lives. And Father, we invite you this morning to come and meet with us, that as we listen to you through your word, that Father, you would speak to our hearts and that you would change our lives and that you would bring glory to your name. We ask it in your precious name. Amen. Okay, if you'd like to turn in your Bibles to Judges chapter 2, this morning we're going to talk about living with intent. Well, it's not quite what I had in mind. Where's Kelly? She's been messing about with my PowerPoint. I said living with intent, not living with intent. So I guess we've got a different talk this morning. I'm only kidding. Okay, we're actually talking about living with intent. Okay? It's not about survival in the wilderness. It's about living with purpose. Living with intent. This is what intent means. Something that is intended. Its purpose, its design, its intention. And the law of intention states it's the state of a person's mind that directs his or her actions towards a specific object. Now, you may have noticed I'm dressed rather casual for preaching today, and I would have kind of dressed in my shorts, but I didn't want to put you off with my legs. But normally, if we've just been kind of the Olympics ends today, you may not be aware of that. You may be fully aware of that. It's the closing ceremony today, and for the last few weeks, athletes from all around the world have been giving everything they have to winning a bit of gold, okay, which actually isn't gold. It just looks like gold. It's 92% silver, just in case you weren't aware of that. But they want this medal. It means huge amounts to them. And it isn't just the past 2 weeks. It's been the past 4 years that they've been training for this event, putting themselves through goodness knows what to win this piece of metal that hangs around their neck. But they had an intent. They went to those games fully intent on winning that medal. There isn't an athlete in any of those teams that went there thinking, well, it might be great if I just kind of win, or if I just end the race, that'd be okay. Every single one of them was intent on winning a medal. Whether they had any chance of it or not, they were out there to win that medal, to get the glory, to be the best. And they gave everything they had for that specific object, to win that particular prize, to win that particular race, to be the best in that particular area. Whether you believe some of them are Olympic sports or not. Like BMXing. The sport of BMX, okay. Synchronized swimming, that's just... Bless them, it looks great. But is it a sport? I don't know. But they're intent on winning. They're the best at what they do. And they make a difference. So let's read Judges chapter 2. I'm just going to read a few verses out of this, but it's a great chapter altogether. We're going to start at verse 8. Judges 2, verse 8. Now Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. And they buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gish. After that, the whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who neither knew the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their ancestors who brought them out of Egypt, and they followed and worshipped various gods of the peoples around them. They aroused the Lord's anger because they forsook him and served the Baal and the Ashtoreths. In the Net Bible, the heading of that particular chapter is The End of an Era. And it's quite a striking one. In mine, it's in the NIV, it says disobedience and defeat. But I like the Net Bible when it says it's the end of an era. It's a very stark beginning to that chapter. And this morning we're going to talk about what it means to live with intent and purpose, to live with a reason and a focus. It's amazing what is going on around us sometimes, and we don't actually know it. We're not fully aware of it sometimes. We feel like we're just maybe going through the motions. And this morning we're going to have a chance at the end. We've been offering prayer ministry every Sunday, and we want to increase that every week. And this morning is going to be a chance to receive prayer and be filled again with the Holy Spirit. But the first thing I want to do is look at 3 reasons as to why we need to live with intent. And the first thing is doing evil in the eyes of the Lord. It says in this chapter that a generation grew up straight after Joshua's generation. I find that amazing. It didn't even take several generations. Within one generation, a people who grew up who neither knew the Lord nor the things he had done. I find that incredibly striking, that just within a matter of years, there's a generation that doesn't know God at all. It hasn't happened over centuries. It's within one generation. And a generation that's just seen God do amazing things. If you read back a few chapters from Deuteronomy, it talks about how Joshua led the people into Canaan. They finally had taken the promised land. They were finally where God had brought them to be. And all the amazing things, all the amazing victories like Jericho and Ai, lots and lots of victories seen. Miracles happened, enormous things that just blew their minds. Within one generation, they didn't even know about them. And that is incredible. How does that happen? And what happens because of it? They started doing evil in the eyes of the Lord, which is pretty crazy, really. Because the chapters before this are very, very specific about obeying God, about keeping his commandments, about living in the blessing of what he'd called them to do and be, and what would happen if they didn't do that. Deuteronomy 6, verse 4 to 25, just a few verses, it says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates." In other words, God's saying, do whatever you have to do to remind yourselves who you are and what you're meant to be doing. To remind ourselves who it is that we serve, why we've been saved, why we're in the place that we are today. I like that kind of verse 7 where it says, impress them on your children. Drill it into them is what it's saying. Make sure that there is no way that they can possibly forget who God is and what he's done. That they will never forget that loving God is the most important thing that they will ever have in their life. Drill it into them. Make sure there is no way they can ever forget what he has done. And I really think that's important for us. But we're not just with our children, with each other. When you sit down, when you get up, when you're walking along the road, talk about God, talk about who he is. It's often interesting when I come away from some conversations and it's just life, because you just talked about God, talked about what he's been doing and what's going on in the lives of different people. In other conversations, you walk away from and just think, well, that was okay. Didn't really mean anything. We just talked about the weather and, the weather. And more weather. It's hot, it's cold, it's snowing, it's boiling, it's rained. It doesn't really add anything to us. It's okay, it's life. But it doesn't inspire us because it's not about God. The most important conversations are how God is doing. And recently we've just gone through this series on choices, about making the right choices, the best choices, not even just good choices. And I remember Pastor Dan telling us that story about the couple who were just bored with life. Do you remember that one? They were just bored. Good people trying to serve God, but just bored generally with life, nothing really feeling like that was inspiring them. And he encouraged them to sow into their kids. Why? Because it's one of the best things that we can do. Impress these things on our children. Impress them on our family. impress them on our friends, on our work colleagues. Living the life that we're meant to live is what's the most important thing for us. It's showing Christ in everyday life, not giving up, not just getting on with life, going through the motions, but living a life of intention. And we're under the same obligation as the Israelites were, to live that kind of life so that the peoples around us know who we belong to, know who we serve, know who makes a difference in our lives. It's all about the way that we live our lives. It's making sure we live with intention. Over the last kind of 3 or 4 weeks, I've been struggling in my quiet times. I'm struggling a bit with my health. I'm feeling very drained and tired. I normally wake up quite early on the morning and I don't really have a problem getting up, but I've been struggling waking up and kind of getting motivated on the morning. And just waiting for some blood test results to kind of figure out what's going on. So it's been a battle because my quiet times are in the morning when everybody else is asleep, because once everybody else gets up, it's nigh on impossible. Especially when Sam's awake, it's like, woo, he's awake. And that's it. The world revolves around Sam. Love him. But I've got to have my quiet time before anybody else is up. So it's been a real struggle to force myself out of bed. I actually set alarms. I've never set alarms because I just wake up normally, especially in the summer when it's light. I wake up very easily, but I've had to really struggle. I've had to set an alarm to wake myself up and drag myself out of bed and turn on the coffee extra strong and wake myself up to have it. And that's battle. I'm not used to that. It's just weird because I just need that time with God, and it's reading the Bible and looking at the same page for 20 minutes, and man, it's like nothing's gone in at all, and that's a struggle, and I don't want that, but at the moment that's kind of where I am, and I'm battling with that, and I'm struggling with it. But it's very easy to think, oh, well, it'll be fine. I'll pick it up when I feel better. I don't know when that's going to be. That could be 6 months, that could be 2 years, I don't know. If I give up now, I lose a whole lot of ground. I've got to be intentional. And if it means that I have to set an alarm and turn the coffee on extra strong and drag myself out of bed, it's necessary because I need it. I can't live without that relationship with God. It's just too important to let go. If it means that I'm a bit tired during the day, then so what? It means the world to me, and I can't live without it. It's a lifestyle thing. We're not Sunday Christians. We're Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday Christians. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's not something we do, it's something we are. It's who we are, it's what He's done for us. We need to be living the life. So following God intentionally prevents us doing evil. It's the right choices. It's the righteous choices that we make. And they're not always easy, are they? Wouldn't it be easier sometimes just not to make the right choices? It's not making bad choices, it's just easier sometimes not to make the righteous choices. Sometimes just to stay quiet when we know we should speak up. Living the righteous lifestyle, not being able to do some of the things that other people can get away with. I found that hard when I was younger. I had this kind of super sensitive conscience. Just did my head in at times, really did, because I was just like, this is ridiculous. Why can't I just do that? All my friends are doing it. Nothing wrong particularly in what they were doing, but just something in my spirit was saying, you can't do that. There's something higher, there's a higher calling. And when you start to just allow certain things, then you just live a certain kind of life. But when we walk in the Spirit, He takes us to a different level. Takes us to a closer walk with Him where some things just are not beneficial for us. Following God intentionally arrests decay. I remember once preaching a sermon on salt and light. And if I remember rightly, there was something ridiculous, like 42,000 uses for salt. Took me ages to get through the sermon. But it was one of the main things is it arrests decay. They used to rub it in meat on the old sailing ships to prevent decay. You know, it stops things decaying and just molding. And it brings flavor. It adds flavor to some things when you have a bland meal and you put some salt on it. And it's useful for many, many different things, and we are meant to be useful in this world. We're not just meant to get through it to the other end. We're meant to make a difference here. We bring flavor to the lives of others and shed light and dispel darkness and reveal Christ to others. It's a life of intention. It's not just a life of getting through it by the skin of our teeth and hopefully we'll just make it to heaven. That's not what we're saved for. The second thing is forsaking the Lord. Within one generation, they forsook the Lord completely. And not living intentionally will cause others to abandon the Lord. That's a scary thought. People are watching us all the time, whether we like it or not. Our children are watching us. Our friends and family are watching us. Our work colleagues are watching us constantly. How will we handle situations? I remember, I probably shared this story, I only have a few, so forgive me if I keep repeating them. I remember one time I'd been reading my Bible, and on that particular day, I think it was something about, you know, a gentle answer turns away wrath. And I was working as a heavy-duty mechanic at the time, and we'd had these new tools put in place, and there was this whole kind of, got to go back in the same place. You know, and I'm pretty good at that because I like order and I like things neat and tidy. And for some reason, I'd used this particular tool. I can't remember what it was, and I hadn't put it back by the time that the next person wanted to use it. And we were stood around kind of it was just at coffee time, and we stood around having a chat, and this guy came over just full of like, bah! Because I hadn't put this particular tool back. It was just like, it was way out of proportion, really, for his response, and I was just like, I was completely blown away just at the way he came over, and it was just one of those God moments where I just felt to say, I'm really sorry, I'll make sure it never happens again. And there's a big group of guys around, and you know, normally men were like, we stand our ground, you know, we won't be kind of pushed around, but I just said, you know, like, I'm really sorry. I fully intended to put it away, I just hadn't got around to it, but I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. And he just went, bruh. He literally, you could almost see him, like his knees went. It was like, he just didn't know what to say. I was like, wow, the Bible's really true. And it was a defining moment for me. But it's true. You know, the Bible is true. And as we live intentionally, we make a difference. The church in England is struggling to catch up because for years, they were silent on many issues. They just sat back thinking things would be okay because with the church, we'd had a pretty good influence in the country for a while, and then they were living on that rather than continually pushing forward. And it's really struggling to make a difference now because there's too many things have come in as a result of just sitting back, hoping things will go well, trusting that they will because they always have, and they won't. And they've got a lot of ground to make up, and it's hard work now. Look at your garden. You just leave it for a few weeks, what happens? Does it take care of itself? Of course it doesn't. It ends up in absolute chaos. All those weeds that you thought you'd got rid of suddenly were just lurking, waiting to reappear. Look at the world. Is it getting any better? Absolutely not. And it never will until the church takes its place and makes a stand and does what it should be doing every single day. Satan is still at work. Christ has not yet returned. We still have work to do. It's not just about getting to heaven. It's about making a difference. Living with intention and purpose. Seeing growth. Seeing lives changed. Making it obvious that we love the Lord. Not just being nice people. We're not just good people. We're not just nice people to have around. Good neighbors to live next door to. We are people that love the Lord and are meant to make a difference. You know, when was the last time that we prayed for a divine opportunity or appointment? We're filled with the Holy Spirit of God, with the power of Christ. We're not just people with a slight difference. who go to church on Sundays, who do better things than some other people. We are filled with the power of God. When was the last time we asked God to give us a gift of revelation, a word of wisdom, a prophetic word for someone? The last time you were sat in Starbucks? When was the last time you were praying for an opportunity to talk to somebody? Just something simple. Doesn't have to be a profound conversation. Just a seed to sow in somebody's life that will make a difference, that will lead them on their journey towards Christ. Do we expect God to use us in that way? When was the last time we prayed for some of these gifts? They're still valid. They are still real, and God still wants to use them in our lives every day. They're not just for Sundays. It's not just for the church. It's for the world. We need to be believing. We need to get engaged. Don't sit back. Don't wait for something to happen. Keep focused. Maintain our desire for the Lord. Keep fighting the good fight. And they worshipped other gods. Within one generation, they were doing evil. They forsook God, and they were worshipping other gods. If we don't show people the true reality of what it means to worship the living God, they will find something else to worship. True? Absolutely true. We only have to look at our own lives as Christians, how easy it can be to take our eyes off the Lord and onto other things. We get distracted, life gets hard, things are going wrong, we lose a job, our finances fail, the success we were thinking of didn't happen, there's family problems. All of a sudden, our eyes are diverted. If we're not following the Lord wholeheartedly, our eyes are suddenly diverted. We're looking to the left and to the right. And people will try and fill their life with whatever they can to attain some sort of satisfaction and happiness. And it's only found when we worship God. Again in Deuteronomy 6, 4-5. Let me just read that again because it's a powerful passage. It's one of those that we kind of read maybe fairly often, but we need to hear it. In verse 4 it says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands. Bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates." It's an incredibly strong passage. Do whatever you have to do to keep yourself walking in the way that you need to be. Listen, Israel. Hear, O Israel. Remind yourselves daily who it is you serve, what it is he's done for you, why it is that you worship him. I was reading a book recently by Francis Chan called Crazy Love. And it says, "It may sound unchristian to say that on some mornings I don't feel like loving God, or I just forget to, but I do. In our world where hundreds of things distract us from God, we have to intentionally and consistently remind ourselves of him." And that resounded with me straight away. I love God with all my heart. But you know what? Sometimes you just forget who he is, what he is really like. Remind yourselves who he is. I've just started reading another book called something. Or Create Your World or something by Patricia King. Never read anything by her before, don't know much about her. And just found it on our bookshelf. I just felt led to read it. And a very striking book about worshipping God and about how that changes the realms and atmospheres around us. And I was really impressed by just her heart to live in a relationship of worship with God, to just understand who he is and to live out of that and to worship him in that way. And it was very, very striking. And I started practicing some of that this week, just thought, I'll do that. And I'll be intentional about that and be very specific about my worship of God. And it really does make a difference. It's actually lifted my spirit enormously this week, just doing that for several days. And I encourage you just to start focusing on God. Start reminding yourself, who is he? What is he like? What has he done for you specifically? Helen and I were just thinking about this over the last year. It was my birthday last week, and she said, let's just have a little think. What's God done since your last birthday? And as we started to list the ways that God had blessed us and provided for us and the opportunities that we'd had to serve him, it was just incredible. Within 1 year, just within 365 days, all that God had done for us was just mind-blowing, really. And you just think, God, I'd like the next however many years. I keep praying that I'll have double my life, so I'm hoping to kind of reach 90. I'm not 45 yet, 44 last week. But I'm hoping that by the time I reach 90, I'm still doing this. I'm still full of vigor. I'm still full of energy. I'm still like Caleb, 85 years old. Give me the hill country. Give me the hard places. I'll take them on. I'm still as vigorous now as I was 40 years ago. And I'm going to take it. And he did. I want to be one of those that I am serving God until I don't breathe anymore. That's what I want. And I pray that for all of us, that we will seek God every day of our life, that we will live intentionally for him. There is nothing in this world remotely worthy of the love and devotion he is worthy of. When we lose sight of him and all he has done for us, the covenant he made with us, the covenant to love us, he sacrificed his own son to redeem us, to forgive us, to substitute our sin for his righteousness, to free us from the power of sin, to give us a hope, to give us a future, to lavish his love upon us, to allow us to freely live in his grace and secure our eternity for presence. When we lose sight of him, we lose sight of all of that. And that defines us. That makes the difference. That we live for. That we're not just on this planet hoping to get to heaven. We have got far, far more than that. I was talking to Pastor Dan a couple of weeks ago, and we were chatting about my preaching and what can I do better. And he said, one of the things that you need to do is ask the so what question. So what? So I'm going to ask the so what question. Okay, make sure that you get what I'm talking about. Because sometimes as preachers we like the sound of our own voice and forget what we're supposed to be talking about. Well, I do anyway. So how do I become someone who lives with intention? Do we ask ourselves that question? Am I living with the purpose that I was called to Christ for? I'm not just saved for myself. I am saved to make a difference. I am living in the power of Christ, full of the Holy Spirit. What difference is that meant to make where I'm living, who I'm living with, who I'm involved with, who I connect with every single day? Review where we're at. Where have we become stagnant? Are there areas of our life that just really aren't growing, where the power of God isn't flowing as it should be? Am I relying on the power of the Holy Spirit? When was the last time that we really put ourselves in a place where we need to rely on the Holy Spirit? Where we're praying for those divine appointments. God, give me an appointment today with somebody that will just spread the gospel, where you can use me. I'm putting myself out there. I want you to fill me with the Holy Spirit again. Have I lost my first love? It's easy to happen sometimes. In Revelation 3, John challenges the churches. You've lost your first love. You've just got distracted with what's going on. Yes, you know what, life is hard. You're being persecuted. But you need to keep your love burning hot for Christ. Do we just end up serving out of duty, out of legalism, because it's the right thing to do, rather than something that we just do out of love for God, because we remember who he is and what he's done? Am I just coasting? Am I expecting God to really use me? Just questions we need to remind ourselves. And I've been asking myself these over the last couple of weeks. God, where am I? Where's the power? I'm feeling like there's just not any power flowing in me at the moment. I don't want to live a nominal Christian life. I don't believe that's what I was called for. I don't believe that's what you saved me for. I'm meant to make a difference. but I can't do it by myself. If your power's not at work in me, then I'm just an ordinary person. I'm just like the next guy. But you didn't save me to be like the next guy. You filled me with the Holy Spirit. Get re-engaged. Be the one who tells the next generation who the Lord is and what he's done. That's a sober reminder that it is our responsibility. Every single one of us, every individual in this room has a responsibility to tell what God has done and who he is, to show it in our lives, to be Christ to other people. It's what we're here for, to replicate him, to honor him, to let his glory flow through us and let his power touch other people's lives. You know, we've been talking over the last kind of few weeks as leaders just about where we are as a church. You know, what do we want to be as a church? How are we going to see growth as a church? We're kind of on that edge, really, of the next stage in church size. We're kind of bumping up against 250, and we want to get through that. And we were at the Victory Church Conference in May, I think it was, and Pastor Dave Myers was talking about size culture in church, and really interesting talk about how different cultures of size affect church growth and how leadership works. And we're kind of at that next stage of kind of 250 to 400. And we're kind of hitting the 250 and we're ready to break through, but we're not quite ready to break through almost in that sense. Because we need to shift our thinking. We need to get engaged so that we're ready for that next stage of church growth. Pastor Dan was saying this morning, you know, we're struggling for volunteers in different areas. If we're struggling now, what happens when the church grows again? Who are going to be the ones to serve and to give their time in that? Because we want ministries that are effective. Our children's ministry isn't a babysitting club. It really isn't. We put our children in there because we want them to be disciples. We want them to grow. You know, in Little Fishes, our Sam's in Little Fishes. We want him to be hearing the word of God, to be learning about God. But you know what? It's not their responsibility to teach him. It's my responsibility as a parent. If I'm just putting him in Little Fishes once a week and hoping that he'll come out a strong disciple at the end, got another thing coming, because it won't happen. Same with young people. They go into detour. But that won't alone raise disciple makers. It will help, but it's not the work of the young people's leaders to make our children good Christians. They're only building on what we do. If we're not doing it as parents, then we need to wake up and smell the coffee. But we need workers. We just need workers. We will always need workers. And we want this church to be a place where unbelievers want to be. But when they come in, they find stuff that is going to make a difference. You know that when we send our children, our youth to their ministries, we know that it's going to make a difference because the right people are there, people who are passionate about making disciples. So we're going to pray. I'm going to invite the worship team back up. And we're going to have a chance to pray. We're going to ask God to come and fill us with the Holy Spirit again, to help us to re-engage. And I just want to challenge you while they're just getting ready to lead us in worship again, just to think about, where are you with God?